Unmon says you have missed it. A monk once wanted to ask Unmon a question and started to say, "The light serenely shines over the whole universe." Before he had even finished the first line, Unmon suddenly interrupted. "Isn't that the poem of Chosetsu Shusai?" The monk answered, "Yes, it is." Unmon said, "You have missed it." Later, Master Shishin took up this koan and said, "Now tell me, why has this monk missed it?" The 39th case, you have missed it. Once Unmon, the line founder Bunen Zenji, was visited by a monk who, when he went to see him, started to say, "The light serenely shines over the whole universe." But before he had even got the words out of his mouth, it was as if he was saying the Ganges River and all its inlet rivers are shining. Before he could even get all of those words out, he was cut off by Master Unmon. "Isn't that the poem of Chosetsu Shusai?" The monk answered, "Yes, it is." And Unmon said, "You have missed it." Chosetsu Shusai, named Shusai because he was a person who had passed a difficult official test, an exam. Sekiso Sosetsu's disciple. In that era, there were many and who would know this first line. And when he met his teacher, and he asked, in that era, when he was asked by his teacher his name, he told his teacher Chosetsu. And his teacher told him that hearing that name, in asking further, he said to him, "My family name is Cho, and my first name is Setsu," replied Chosetsu. The master lost no time in asking further. "Skill is unattainable by seeking. Where does Setsu, which means unskillfulness, come from?" At this, Chosetsu was awakened to his true self, or no self, and made the following poem. "The light serenely shines over the whole universe. Ignorant, wise, and living creatures are all in my abode. When no thought arises, the whole is fully revealed. If the 6 organs move even a little, it is obstructed by clouds. If you cut off your ignorance, your ailment will increase. If you look for the truth, you are also in the wrong. Living in accordance with worldly affairs, you will have no obstructions. Nirvana and life and death are like colors in a dream." This monk must have lived these words and wanted to tell them so much. That's why he gave them as a quote to Master Unmon when he first met him. But Master Unmon immediately called him on it, saying, "That's not yours, that's Chosetsu Shusai's poem." Master Unmon said this without hesitation. "Don't bring such words of someone else in here. Where is your gut?" He must have thought he would have given a better line if he had given his own. And immediately he said sharply, quoting someone else, "You have missed it." Later, Master Shishin brought up this as well. Later, Master Shishin took up this koan and said, "Now tell me, why has this monk missed it?" The monk said, yes, it was another's poem. He admitted it straightforwardly. And he was yelled at again. And at this point, he brought, if we can't see this and what's going on here from there, then we are not doing Zazen. Once Master Unmon said, "Say a word without using your mouth or your speech. It has to be from before, when there was your parents' face, when there was no north, south, east, and west yet." This is what also those are the same words that Isan said to Kyogen. Pulling out words, just being able to put them out, any old words, is not necessarily the truth. Yet if you don't say anything, then that is not Zen either. Master Unmon said, "What is Buddha?" Of course, this cannot be spoken. An answer of a dried shit stick or that three people would bring up the tortoise, which cannot be described even by three. When Unmon said this, it was another person's line. This was like asking one to open their mouth and speak without going into oneness or many, as we read about yesterday. If you speak, then you lose its positive meaning. If you don't speak, then you cannot reach the other person. When there was no answer, Master Fuketsu brought in a poem from an old Chinese verse about flowers and partridges. So why did Unmon complain? If it was Fuketsu bringing in a poem that was so honored, then why did Unmon mind if this monk brought in a poem that someone else had written? And even to say, "You have missed it." What should he have said to not be disapproved of by Master Unmon? And he said yes when he was told that he was bringing in another person's work. Where is that any different from Master Fuketsu using another's poem about flowers and partridges? In Zen, to just say what makes you feel good, this is not Zen. It's like being the rock in the garden. Zen is not about this, and so he said, "You have missed it." As it is said in the words we often hear, that to allow the wisdom of Bodhidharma, but not to allow the knowledge, the mental knowledge. Wisdom means prajna wisdom, the Buddha nature. But knowledge is something which is mental and coming from the head. And this is not what we should allow. The words from our deeply intuitive mind will be allowed, but not our words that come from our mere mental knowledge. Had this monk really deeply digested this poem and used it freely, when he was asked if it was the poem of Chosetsu Shusai, he wouldn't have said yes. But Unmon could easily tell it was only a mental idea. He could see the difference between if it had been a true deep experiencing of that poem or a mental version of it. You could not deceive Master Unmon. If you have even walked this path a little, you could see the difference. In Zen, bringing in anything mental will not be acceptable. To divide into subject and object, the one who sees the world with a world that has been seen, the one who hears the world with a world that has been heard, the one who tastes the world with a world that has been tasted. We can see the subjective and objective here. But we all think that what we feel is our subjective, and that everything else that is eternal to that is objective. But if we seriously and deeply sit, we have to wonder, why does our body get so much pain? It is because we are seeing it as something external. Like we think that mountains and rivers are outside of us. We shallowly think that. Or that one body in motion is not our own body. We think it is my body, but we are looking at that my body as if it is an object. And so we cannot sit zazen deeply. If we really sit, we have to clearly see, what is this I anyway? That which is sitting down to its very most final point. The master within the master is what this is referred to as. This body can see the whole world, reflecting it, but it cannot see the master within the master. Those very last final eyes, without birth, without death. Nothing which is tainted, nothing which is pure, doesn't increase, does not decrease. Our true original nature. We can talk about mind, body being one, but that is still only intellectual, talking about it. And we can't go to see Master Unmon Daishi if we're going to be talking like that. He can see if a person is truly awakened to that true self in a glance. And so he called him on that poem. Of course, he had prepared that poem. And then Unmon told him that he missed it. Please, not only by Unmon Daishi, but to anyone else. If you don't want to be made a fool of, Don't count on words and phrases. You have to sit deep in your zazen, deep to the place in your susokan where you can go beyond any of that mental activity. Hakuin Zenji, in his exhortations for Rohatsu Sesshin, 6 out of 7 days he spends most of the entire exhortations teaching us how to do susokan, how to do the breathing, with life on the line. Whether it is a koan or not, it has to be given attention totally in every single moment, every single breath. Just like blowing up a balloon, attention to it in every single exhalation. And with a balloon, if we do not give it that kind of attention, then it will be totally flat and flaccid. If we take our focus off it too soon, our zazen as well does not deepen. To do this, we have to do it with our whole body and intention and have no gaps in between the breaths, or else we get a flat, flaccid balloon which has no response. Zazen is done for 1 week only in a session because it can be done best if we only do it for 1 week. The 3rd day is the hardest. Then there is the 4th day. We begin to be able to let go of our body's problems and are able to finally sit and really focus. And so Genji people are in line waiting for a chance to do what is called doku session, a solo session, but they are only allowed to do it for 1 week. And for that whole week, the person sits in the mountain. Everyone else does their samoan work, prepares their food. They come to Sanzen, and when the Sanzen is finished, they take the food that has been prepared for them, goes back up to the mountain. It cannot be protected Zen. Everything has to be thrown out completely, let go of, totally. And then, only then, can we sit with our life on the line. This can be thoroughly done only for 1 week when we put our whole energy into it. Then it can go on by itself. We are seeing and hearing, but it is not my existence seeing and hearing anymore. We are full and taught in our mind. That is what then gets cultivated. Master Unmon is saying, you have missed it, because it is not about bringing in my favorite poem to the master. Later, this was also spoken about by the master to the assembly, when he also said that he was not being clear in giving that poem. This is also, as Secho has written in his poem to the case by Nansen, seeing, hearing, understanding, knowing, each of these is not separated. For him, mountains and rivers do not appear as in a mirror. When the frosty heaven's moon has set and midnight nears, whose shadow with mine will the clear pool reflect so cold? For him, mountains and rivers don't appear as if in a mirror. He is there, but there is no judgment that could possibly be made in that state of mind. This is a very important aspect of Zazen. This is a way that we have to see clearly, and this is what we have in the definition about Zazen, where we have no ideas to be added to anything that we perceive externally, and no concerns to be held onto within. If we are sitting in that way, but we have to be able to take it to its most further place. And this is what Mumon Ekai is also saying. And Master Hakuin, when he heard the dawn bell, Mumon Ekai, when he heard the drum calling people for the meal, for the Buddha, when he saw the morning star, and for Kyogen, when he heard the sound of the tile and the bamboo. To sit Zazen without an explosion, it doesn't become the real thing. Fuketsu Osho also had this well covered, and so when he gave that poem about the partridges and the flowers, he could do that because it was so clear about the quality of his state of mind. He was the real thing. Conceptual zazen gets us nowhere. This is why the sixth patriarch gave that definition, to not add any thoughts to anything we see, and to not hold on to any cares or concerns within whatsoever. We can't think of doing it because we can't even think of having thoughts because we are so full and taut within. This is the experiencing of Zen, not because it doesn't happen because it was the era of the Buddha and therefore he was able to do that. And now it's this era, and so people don't do it anymore. This is not the point at all. This can happen any time if we get serious, decide, commit, and we go for it. And that is what he is saying. Don't come in here without that experience. Don't just bring in your favorite poem. And if it comes from the small self and ego, it is not that. It has to be that true experience. And if someone has that true experience, he can see it clearly that they have realized it. Or each and every person has to realize it for themselves, to experience it for themselves. And this is what Master Unmon is saying to all of us. In this case, it has to be that true and actual realization. Mumon's poem, a line is dropped in a swift stream, greedy for the bait he has caught. If you open your mouth only a little, your life is lost. Mumon Daishi then gives that poem. The poem the monk brought in, the light serenely shines over the whole universe. After the monk had just given the first line, he had it all pulled out from under him. And he was stunned and told, you have missed it. And he lost everything. If you open your mouth only a little, your life is lost. And it cannot be an infantile zazen we do. We have to realize it deeply. And then it has to be true. And giving that joy to all people, realizing it, and then giving it to others. We have to bring it to this point. If there is anything left, we will miss it completely. We can't be holding on to anything. But that Chosetsu Shusai poem, and he jumped for it, and then he said yes. That was the mistaken yes, pulled in by Unmon's strength. But with one word, he was caught, and his Buddha nature flew off. We can't lax in our own efforts. We are warned seriously here. Truly a case which can show us, for the first time even, how deeply we have to review our own behavior.